Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. My mic is in the right place. There we go. Oh, I should turn on Do Not Disturb. There we go. Now let's do a mic test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Brilliant. Oh, that's quite loud. There we go. Oh, Unigram. Unigram's awful right now. Why do you keep doing this? I don't know if anyone else uses Unigram, but for me, it's just randomly, it just like freezes and you can't close it. The only way to kill it is to end it through Task Manager. So annoying. This is why you should use the official client. The web app, yeah. Yeah. I've not seen the new web version. I'll have to take a look. All right, I'm ready when you're. When are they adding AI to the sound recorder app? They should do that. Remove background noise and stuff. Come on, Microsoft, let's do it. Oh, I am now recording.
Everybody's favorite tool in Windows, actually it's mine, I use it all the time, is getting OCR. We'll talk about what that means from the later, and also update you guys on the latest insider build to what's going on there. Last minute Microsoft event speculation. Yes, Microsoft is going to have its event next week, September 21st on Thursday, New York City. It will not be broadcast. However, I will be there, although I still got to book my flight, so maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But I should be there covering it all, and we'll go through what we expect and some last minute things there. Related to that, Surface Laptop Studio 2 renders leak. And yes, it confirms what we've already been talking about, but we'll go through that there. I'm sure Panos is very upset again. He's like, I really didn't have much to announce for Surface, and it's already out there. SwiftKey gets some AI, specifically Microsoft Editor, and I actually really like it a lot. Slash, I didn't think SwiftKey would be as good on the Fold 5 as it is, but I've now made it my default keyboard, which I found surprising. Thunderbolt 5 was announced by Intel this week. And then we also have HP had a rather big announcement with its 17-inch foldable PC, the 17-inch Spectre Fold. Is it Spectre Fold or yeah, Spectre Fold it's called. We'll go through the details there, how it differs from Lenovo's X1 ThinkPad Fold 16, which to our knowledge still hasn't actually been released. I will say HP did a really good job here. I wasn't expecting it. The question was, before, I know we'll get into it later, but was, can HP actually just make something different, right? Is it going to bring something new to the table in terms of foldables and what we have already seen? And I would say they did with this. They have. The downside will be the price, which will be,
Yeah.
make it out of reach for most people. But we'll get to all that shortly. And we'll also talk maybe briefly about the new iPhones and Apple announcements this week. Then we'll do the thing of the week if we have time as well. So, Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. I'm a little bit stressed. I am currently packing to go to India. So if you were wondering if we're doing a show next Friday, I'm not, at least. I don't know if Dan's planning to do one, but I'm certainly not going to be around for it. So We will recap the event the week after. So for those of you who've been wondering about that, yes, there'll be no podcast next week, but we'll be back the Friday after to recap the event and whatnot. But we're also just going to do the sort of what we're expecting on this episode as well. We'll try and talk about it as if it's already happened, the event, because I think we know most of what's going to be talked about, but I guess we'll see. But other than that, I'm all good. How are you, Dan?
Hanging in there. I hate talking about the weather, but the weather's finally turned into like fall weather.
Yeah.
It was early this week. It was 96% humidity. I was going to lose my mind. I hate humidity so bad, and I just want to like throw things. But now it is completely dry and crisp and feels like fall, and I have to wear long sleeves and puts me in a better mood. So I'm good with that. I guess we'll also talk about my thing of the week. I went to a concert on Sunday, and it was for my favorite band, and I'll just go off on a thing about how good they are and you should all listen to them, but that's fine. But let's get to the news, I suppose, first. So, of course, there are some Windows 11 insider builds that came out this week, and there was the one banner feature that was actually kind of neat that actually will be really useful, I think, for people who do productivity on laptops and PCs every day.
Yep. So this is something, again, we've sort of discussed was on the way, but it's now official. The ability for the sniffing tool to identify text in screenshots and images and allow you to copy them to paste elsewhere. This is all part of Microsoft's sort of air quotes AI push for Windows, turning Windows into a smart OS that works for you. And this is something that, other platforms have been doing for a while. I know the Google Pixel does it, for example. I'm pretty sure the iPhone does it as well.
Samsung, I think, does it too.
Samsung almost certainly does it. Yeah, everyone's been doing it on mobile for a while. Windows is playing catch up here, but it is good to finally see that it is actually coming now. So they're essentially adding OCR technology, which is object. I forgot what it is. What is it, Dan? OCR?
Object character recognition.
That's it, object character recognition. So it is only for text, at least for now. We have heard that things like the photos that make it updated, the ability
optical.
There we go. We have heard that, say, the photos app may be getting an update to identify objects and then to cut actual objects out of images. But for now, the sniffing tool is only able to do text. But that's still, I think, the majority of what people want it to do, being able to, if you hit Win-Shift-S and then select a paragraph of text in a document or something, you can now just Control-A, Control-C, all of that text in the sniffing tool app, which is fantastic. Not only that, they've also added a redaction feature into the sniffing tool, which will use, I guess, AI or whatever you want to call it, to automatically identify emails and phone numbers in the screenshot and just automatically redact them, which is amazing. Cool. Yeah, that's great. It's great for us who take screenshots of a lot of Windows parts, like the Windows settings app, for example, always displays your damn email address at the top left. So being able to redact it automatically is going to be pretty sweet. But Microsoft also updated the phone link here as well. This
is kind of cool too.
Yeah, this is less of an AI thing, but still a nice sort of quality of life improvement nonetheless. But now, if you have your phone linked via phone link to your Windows PC and you take a photo, phone link will pop a notification saying, "Hey, you've just taken a photo. Would you like to jump in and begin editing that immediately?" This is just sort of making it quicker for you to jump into the photo editing mode that's already present in phone link. If you open the Photos tab in there and click on an app. Click on a picture and then click on edit. This is essentially just streamlining that, so it will just allow you to start editing the most recent picture you've just taken. This is great for, say, this has happened to me filling out my visa forms for India. They're like, "Hey, we need a picture of your passport." And I'm like, "Oh, great." So take a picture. Now, if I had phone link set up or had that version, Windows would just be like, "Hey, you've just taken a picture. Would you like to quickly crop this now?" And I can just crop it and then quickly upload it on my computer. That's what it's for, and it's pretty handy.
And I can use it for every time I take pictures of my cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I'll just keep getting notifications all day on all my computers. Now, I actually think both of these, again, they're not like, you're not going to see this on like CNN tonight, right? Breaking news: Windows 11 gets OCR and sniffing tool, or the phone link things. But these are why I always talk about these little things that just really make a big difference in terms of everyday usage of devices. It's the attention to details, the little things that matter. Sure, big banner features are great, but, as someone who uses snipping tool all the time, like having the ability to lift the text out of the thing I just captured and also redact phone numbers and personal data is like, that's super cool. Like that's actually really, really useful because I'm always snipping and copying images and, doing things. So that's good. And then I think the phone link thing is also really useful. I mean, this is like, for people who do live blogging, this would be very useful, of course, too. But the ability just to take a photo and then have it immediately kind of show up on your PC as an option to edit or open, I think is just, I think that's going to be really nifty. So, unfortunately, it's all in the insider builds,
That's right.
so
Yep.
we won't be getting this stuff for a little while. And this won't be coming with the October update, if I'm correct, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. The thing with these sort of app updates is that they can be delivered independently from the OS. So although it may not be their day one, it may only be a week after 23.2 drops where you actually end up getting the updates as well. I wouldn't be shocked if Microsoft advertises this stuff as part of the next Windows 11 update, even if it's not there on day one. But I don't think it'll be too far behind. A lot of this stuff is already quite polished. I mean, I'm running it right now on the base channel, which is not even out for officially yet, and it's working absolutely fine. So, real quick, I also want to mention that I didn't even catch this. They announced yesterday, but Windows Photos app was also updated with background blur and motion photo support. So motion photo support, for those who don't know, that is a thing your iPhone and I assume Samsung and Google Pixel phones do as well, where you can take a live image where you take the picture and it's a picture, but it's actually taken like a very short video, and you can, on the iPhone at least, you can tap and hold it and you can see motion in the picture essentially. The Photos app is now officially able to show that motion, so that's nice. And then they've also added, as I mentioned, background blur. So again, another air quotes AI thing.
What do you mean background blur?
So if you've got a picture of yourself or a group of you and you hit background blur, it will now blur the background like with a bokeh effect, just like on, say, if it's portrait mode on an iPhone, you can now sort of add that after the fact through the Photos
How
app.
well does that work, though?
I don't know. I've not given it a try yet. The example they use isn't very good, to be honest. but but maybe there's just
Because background blur on images, to simulate bokeh effect on, a real camera, for lack of better terms, it's been very difficult to do. It uses a lot of computational algorithms. It's been something that's been improving over the years, but we all know, even right, my background blur right now, like I'm using AI RTX via NVIDIA Broadcast, probably one of the best things, but this is like super, like it's an RTX 4080 powering it. But to do it with photos, it's been tricky. And, Samsung, especially Google and Apple have gotten good at it. But I'm curious about how, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same tech from Surface Duo.
It could be
Just
for
port it
sure.
over.
Yeah, maybe. Also, I'm curious if this is happening on device or if they're using the cloud to process it as well. They don't say, annoyingly. There's frustratingly very little detail about how this works in the Photos app. They just say it will automatically work, and if it doesn't do a good job, there's an option to manually select the area where you don't want to be blurred.
Got it.
But yeah, so that's coming to the Photos app as well. And like I said, I would be shocked if they don't mention some of this next week at the Microsoft event, because this is all very much AI sort of centric stuff. I know it's not technically AI. There's a debate whether OCR is AI, if it's machine learning, or if machine learning even counts as AI itself. But it's all sort of under the same sort of vein of making Windows smarter for you. And I'm pretty sure that's the topic of the event next week. So good to see all of this stuff is being added to Windows over time. They are slowly but surely making the inbox Windows apps more capable, much smarter, which is really nice to see. Last week we got the Paint app update, which can now remove a background from an image, which is really cool. And we know that there's some more AI stuff coming to the Paint app at some point soon. And so, yeah, this is all going on right now. There was some insider builds this week, but there were no new features in them, particularly just fixes and some boring stuff, which we won't mention. And that, I think, is just about it for the Windows stuff. I will say, I've seen a few people asking, when is the next update coming? Will it be coming end of September? Will it be launching in October? To my knowledge, the general availability date for the Windows 11 23H2 update is October 10th, which is Patch Tuesday for October. So that's not a surprise. However, will there be a preview week D sort of phase for it, which what I believe was the case with 22H2? I can't remember. Or maybe it was the case for some of the moment updates. The answer to that is I don't know. If Microsoft is planning to do a preview week for it, it will probably be September 26th. But that will be if you're going to Windows Update these days, there's that toggle, right? Get the newest updates as soon as possible or something like that, preview new features. That will be when you get it if you have that option ticked on September 26th. If you don't have that option ticked, you won't get it till October 10th, to my knowledge. So that's when I'm hearing it will be made generally available.
Zach, yeah, I guess you screwed up my audio at the beginning of this video.
Yes, I did. Don't worry.
Fair enough. All right, let's move over to last minute Microsoft event speculation, which we've been talking about now for a few weeks. So there's
Yeah.
no real, I don't think, surprises here, but why
No.
don't you give us the rundown to what's going to happen next week?
Yeah, so I mean, Microsoft may surprise us. We can't possibly know everything. Maybe Microsoft has something up its sleeve that I don't know about yet. But what we're about to talk about is everything I have heard will be discussed. That's not to say this is everything that will be discussed, so keep that in mind. But top billing for the event will be, of course, Windows AI and Surface devices. We'll start with the Windows AI stuff. The event primarily will be an AI event. I think. I think internally Microsoft views it as an AI event more than a hardware event this year. That's not a surprise if you take a look at all of Microsoft's events this year. They have primarily been AI centric events with a little bit of other stuff mixed in. So that's a trend that continues here. But I'm hearing the sort of big sort of one of the big conversations that will be happening at the event is Windows Copilot. Windows Copilot was announced back in May. And it was they said it was going to be able to do all of this stuff, but we've had the preview now for a number of months, and it's very, very basic still. That, to my knowledge, is going to be changing, and it starts at this event with third-party plugins. Third-party plugins are sort of the lifeblood of the Windows Copilot, or at least that's how Microsoft is viewing it internally, where third-party plugins will make the Copilot useful as a Windows assistant. Right now, Windows Copilot is basically Bing Chat, right? With a tiny bit of Windows capabilities mixed in there. Not very much at all. It can turn your system theme from light to dark. It can turn on Do Not Disturb mode, but it really can't do much more currently. But with third-party plugins and with that platform, which I'm not even sure if it's public yet or if it's not yet, it will be very soon, developers will be able to build capabilities into Windows Copilot that hook up to their own apps, and that makes the Windows Copilot much more competent. So, and I'm calling it third party, but that applies to Microsoft as well. Microsoft products, whether that be Office or Teams or whatever other apps they do, even Windows such as the File Explorer. Microsoft could build a File Explorer plugin for Windows Copilot and give it capabilities that way. Plugins will be what makes the Copilot smart on Windows, and I'm told at this event they're going to talk a bit about that. They'll talk about some third-party plugins that are already lined up. I believe Spotify is one of them. I think Adobe's got some. There's quite a few companies or developers that have been building plugins already that Microsoft will demo at the event. And this is where the capabilities of the Windows Copilot will come from. So they're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that, because I think they're aware that everybody who's tried Windows Copilot so far has stepped away kind of disappointed with it. And so they want to make a big deal about how, no, you guys, I promise this is going to get better. That's kind of what they want to talk about at the event. Not only that, I also hear that Microsoft will spend some more time talking about the Windows 365 Copilot, which is a separate thing. That's the Copilot you will find in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Office, etc., etc. Up until now, I don't think they've shown that off in live code. They've only shown off concepts of it or like renders of it. And it's only been available in preview for enterprise customers. I am told that the Windows 365 Copilot is coming to the consumer version of Office, so that's people who subscribe to it personally. But that won't be happening until next year, though I think this may be announced at the event. They will say, hey, Windows 365 Copilot is coming next year for consumers. Here's what it looks like, and they'll give you like a live demo maybe of all the stuff it can do for the first time on stage, that is. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then, as I mentioned, the stuff we've basically just talked about, I'm sure there'll be a segment where Microsoft talks about how they're enhancing Windows with AI, either through NPQ stuff like Windows Studio Effects, or with the stuff we've seen in inbox apps so far, such as the Photos background blur, Paint getting background removal, and maybe some other sort of generative image stuff, Snipping Tool getting OCR and whatnot. And I'm sure there's more stuff to come in that regard as well. So that's sort of the stuff I'm hearing.
It's kind of interesting. In a lot of ways, you can argue that, and we've kind of hinted about this in the past. I mean, there's already examples of this in Windows 11. Now, Windows itself is becoming more smartphone-like.
Yes, I think so.
Smartphones for years, because of Qualcomm, have had dedicated AI chips. And then you have Google with their Tensor Core and all this kind of stuff have been big on algorithmic. We've seen algorithmic, processing for photos, which has really made a huge impact. And that's expanded to being able to use your camera to scan for things. And Samsung has a lot of smart stuff, in its phones that can be used. And we're starting to see, Windows adopt a lot of that. Even, of course, the start menu, right? It was controversial for some people, but the new start menu looks like Android, almost like the Android app list. And I feel like that's obviously on purpose, because if you look at computation as a general field today, smartphones is where it's at. That's the most used computer that people use every day. PCs, laptops, desktops are all there too, but I think the idea of trying to make um, your computer more like your smartphone, and including linking them up in the first place so that they act as tools together, I think is actually a really smart play. It's going to be interesting to see how far it can go. But I know this idea of like, oh, AI, is going to be everywhere. Yeah, I mean, but that's where else can you go with operating systems, to be
Yeah.
honest, right? Otherwise, you're literally just talking about redesigning UI elements every single time. Like that's, really what it comes down to. We already got like I'm not sure what other features Windows needs per se. I know like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be able to do this on a start menu and right click on the taskbar and move it around. I get that stuff. I'm talking about like on a productivity feature level, not simple options on configuration. But with AI, it really just enhances and makes computers much more useful and powerful, especially for where they're mostly used today, which is productivity and creativity. Uh, Putting gaming aside, gaming is obviously a huge part of that too, but that's what people are using. They're using for video editing, photo editing, creations of documents, manipulation of data, information, like all this stuff is where it is. And of course, video, for conference calls, all this kind of stuff. So the idea of just like using all this kind of machine learning and AI technology to make that stuff even better and more feel like your smartphone smarter, I think is just a smart decision. I think you'll see all operating systems go down this route. It's just a matter of being creative enough to think of things, right? Putting OCR
Yeah.
and snipping tool might not have been the first thing you think of, like, oh, AI is a future. Like everybody's gonna be like, oh, like Cortana. I was like, or OCR and snipping tool, right? It's a
Yeah.
very small usage of machine learning, but it's gonna be one of those things I think that makes a big impact on
You know,
everyday productivity for people.
a perfect example of this, which has made an impact on everybody. Everybody who I mention it to says, absolutely, you're totally right. Notifications being able to identify 2FA codes and being able to just copy it straight from the
Yes,
notification.
that's
That is
huge.
a prime example of Windows becoming smarter and being more
Yeah.
useful to the end user. That is kind of what Microsoft is sort of going for here with this new era of AI moving into 2024. And of course, as we've discussed previously, the version of Windows coming next is where the AI stuff will really start getting more capable and stuff. Right now, we're seeing very much top level sort of surface stuff, minor things here and there, but it's the next version of Windows where they're going to start integrating it deeply and relying more on the NPU and the VPU stuff for advanced AI capabilities and whatnot. But that's a topic for another time. I don't think we'll hear about that at the event. I think it's still too early. I think right now it'll just be really focused on the Windows Copilot and Surface level stuff coming to Windows 11 this year and maybe early next year. And then there'll be an event probably spring or early summer next year where they talk about Windows VNext and all the AI stuff coming then. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We've also got hardware to talk about. So this year's hardware refresh isn't all that exciting, at least as far as I'm aware. The top of the show, the star of the show, will be the Surface Laptop Studio 2, which, as we've discussed before, will be featuring Intel 13th gen processors, Intel Core i7 13700 or 13800 H series processors, that is, as well as NVIDIA RTX 4050 or 4060 laptop GPUs. I do also hear that there will be commercial variants and they'll have RTX 2000 ADA GPUs, I think they're called. I can't remember now. But that's the case with the Laptop Studio 1 as well. They had RTX 2000 or something or other as well. So yes, we're getting that for the specs. We will also be getting 16 gigs of RAM in the base configuration, 32 gigabytes of RAM in the sort of mid-tier ones, and then at the very top end for the first time, 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is the first time we're ever seeing that amount of RAM on a Surface PC. That will also make this the most powerful Surface PC on the market, more powerful than the Surface Studio 2 Plus, which comes with an RTX 3060. Of course, that's a last-gen GPU. The Laptop Studio 2 here will be 40 series GPU, so much more powerful, much more recent as well. I know people are quite upset that it's a 13th gen processor, but what do you want Microsoft to do? Do you want them to delay this another 6 months? The 14th gen chips aren't out yet, and even if they were around the corner, Microsoft wouldn't be ready to ship this Laptop Studio 2 in October, which is when they want to. They'd have to test it for at least a few more months before it starts shipping. That'd push it into early 2024, and we might.
Here's what I'll tell you why it's not terrible. 14th gen is going to be about battery life and efficiency.
Yeah.
That's important. It's very crucial. but it also kind of depends on the laptop you're talking about, right?
Hmm.
You're talking about like a 13-inch Ultrabook. I would say battery life is super important. If you're talking about like a 17-inch gaming laptop, less so.
Yeah,
Because
right.
the idea that you're gonna be like on the train and opening up a 17-inch laptop to start gaming uh, is probably pretty slim. Most people are going to use these things at a desk, and there's that fine line. Now, ideally, you want best of both worlds, and so I'm not saying that they should never go to 14th gen or it wouldn't be nice, but I'm saying the jump from 11th gen to 13th gen is going to be so significant in terms of performance boost, and the fact that most people using Laptop Studio are going to probably be using it at a desk or in a stationary
Mm.
place, because it's not an ultrabook in the traditional sense. It's really meant as a device for creativity and productivity, video editing. Now, some people do that on the go. And listen, the Surface Laptop One, Studio One, got really good battery life. Actually, it's one of the best performing Surface devices. And if they don't veer too far from that, it's still going to be very good battery life. Um, but it's really about the performance booster that's going to be super important to this category of device. Like, and if you're using this for kind of like engineering, like you have 64 gigs of RAM, you have the pen, you're doing
Yeah.
3D models and all this kind of stuff. Again, you will be able to do that on a train, on an airplane, and you will get good battery life, and be able to complete your project. But I think a lot of people are going to be more concerned about using the stationary, where they can sit down and actually focus on kind of what they're doing, versus something like the HP Dragonfly G4, which is very mobile and it's meant for productivity and information management, where you really do want to have that all day battery life or as much as you can. I think it's a little bit more important there. I'm not making excuses for Microsoft. We've harped on how their release schedule is always weird compared to other OEMs, but I'm excited about this laptop. The
Yeah.
Laptop Studio One was one of my favorite laptops to use. I still use it quite often. Um, and getting this performance boost from all those extra cores and that the new architectural shift, I think is going to be kind of like a really big deal.
Yeah. So curiously, I do hear that Microsoft is omitting the Intel Core i5 version from the Surface Laptop Studio 2. Surface Laptop Studio 1 had an Intel Core i5, 256 gig storage, and Intel Iris Xe graphics option at the very base, the entry level SKU, and that was $1,600. My sources say that is gone. So the entry level model for the Laptop Studio 2 will start at with an Intel Core i7 with 512 gigabytes of SSD storage and then 16 gigs of RAM and Intel Iris Xe graphics. But that will come in at an eye-watering $1,900. So that will be the new entry-level price for the Surface Laptop Studio 2, $1,900. Big jump in price there for the starting price for Laptop Studio 2. But you do get a more powerful processor and more storage in exchange for that. So that's something to keep in mind if you were hoping to get an i5 model of the Laptop Studio 2. To my knowledge, that's not a thing for this model. So moving on to the other stuff that we know is new and not new with the device. The overall design is expected to remain the same. It will still be a 14.4 inch, laptop with that two-stage design underneath. No major design changes outside of the device except for the port selection. We are hearing that there'll be a couple of additional ports. One USB-A port on the left next to the dual Thunderbolt 4 USB-C ports, which are already present on the Laptop Studio 1. And then on the right side, we've got our Surface Connect, 3.5mm headphone jack, and a new micro SD card reader, which I think creators will be very happy to see. Although it's curious that it's a micro SD card reader and not a full-size one. I think most would prefer a full-size SD card reader. But I guess micro SD better than nothing, question mark? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be enough for people to be okay with. But those are the additional ports that I'm hearing will be added. The display itself, as I mentioned, 14.4 inch, but it will be brighter with HDR capabilities, which will be nice to see. And we're also getting an upgraded haptic touchpad with more levels of haptic feedback control and what not. Let me just check here. And then, of course, NPU stuff. I'm hearing the Laptop Studio 2 will have an NPU or some kind of NPU which can tap into Windows Studio effects and do the AI stuff that I'm sure will be a big discussion during the event. So that's the Surface Laptop Studio 2. Hearing it will begin shipping in early October alongside all the other ones. Moving on to Laptop Go 3, which is one of the other devices I'm hearing will be unveiled during the event. This is going to be a very minor upgrade. If you've got a Surface Laptop Studio 2, Laptop Go 2, you are not going to notice any real differences here. We're getting an upgrade from an 11th gen Intel chip on the Laptop Go 2 to a 12th gen Intel chip on the Laptop Go 3. The only real noticeable changes here is that they scrapped the 4GB RAM model from the entry-level SKU. So 4GB of RAM is gone. Those of you who are complaining for years now that 4GB shouldn't be offered on Surface PCs, you have won because Microsoft is scrapping it from the entire Surface lineup. So the entry-level model will start with 8GB of RAM. And for consumers, that will be 8GB of RAM with 256GB of SSD storage, and that will have a starting price of $749. So that's a big jump up from the Laptop Go 2, which had an entry-level price of $599, and that included 4GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. This new entry level doubles the RAM and doubles the storage for an extra $150. So $749 starting. If you're a student, I believe you'll be able to get it for $699. But yeah, we're basically seeing prices increase at the entry level across the board here, and I think the same will be the case for the Surface Go 4 as well. Regarding any other changes to it, I do hear for the first time they will offer a 16GB of RAM option for the consumers. Laptop Go 2, you can get it in 16GB of RAM, but it's only through Microsoft's commercial channels, the Surface for Business line, rather. Whereas here on the Laptop Go 3, you'll be able to configure that as a consumer straight for the normal Microsoft Store and probably on Amazon and stuff as well. So 16GB of RAM will be offered, which is nice to see. And there'll also be a 512GB option in regards to storage for commercial customers for the first time. And that model of 512GB of storage and 16GB of RAM for commercial markets will cost $1,200. So that's a lot of money for a Laptop Go, especially with one without a backlit keyboard and a sub 1080p display, which to my knowledge are remaining the same. There will be no backlight and there will be a very low resolution screen, just like the Laptop Go 2. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. We may get some AI voice clarity stuff, but that's basically everything for Laptop Go 3. Overall, not a major update at all. And then lastly, this is the last Surface PC device I'm hearing will be unveiled during the event, and that is the Surface Go 4. And this is really just going to be, again, another minor refresh. It was originally supposed to be a Windows and ARM device, but I'm hearing that they've sort of postponed that plan for now, and instead it would just ship with an Intel N200 processor, which is quite a big upgrade from the 10th gen Intel Core i3 found in the Surface Go 3. So you will be getting a significant performance boost going from Go 3 to Go 4, which is nice to see. But the overall design, the external design is said to remain the same. Again, they are dropping the 4GB of RAM model. So the entry-level model will start with 8GB of RAM with 64GB of, to my knowledge, UFS storage. So they're finally dropping eMMC, I think it is, in the Surface 64GB model. They're dropping that, and they're now going with UFS, which is much faster storage for the entry-level model, which is good to see. So overall performance should be not too bad on the Surface Go 4. Surface have said, the performance on the Surface Go 4 is actually almost closer to like a Surface Pro Mini, which is interesting. But that is now going to be a thing now on the Surface Go line. Sadly, though, I do hear that this will only be available. I say sadly as if you can't buy it, but you will be able to buy it. But I am hearing it will be commercial only. It's just like the Surface Pro 7 Plus was when that was first announced. You remember that? They only sold it in the For Business store on MicroStore.com. You can still buy it as an end user if you wanted to, but it just means you don't really get discounts on it. You have to buy it outright, and it comes with Windows 11 Pro rather than Windows 11 Home. Now, internally, although the external design is the same to my knowledge, internally they have redesigned it, so it's now more repairable. If you cast your minds back, all Surface devices announced in the last few years have been repair friendly, or at least attempting to be repair friendly with more replaceable components. The Surface Go is the only one left in the lineup that isn't currently up to that standard. It's still very much a glue machine. You can't get into it, and if you do get into it, you're going to break something while doing so. That's changing with Surface Go 4. You will be able to replace the display, the kickstand, the battery, and to my knowledge, even the motherboard. So that's good to see as well. So yeah, I believe that's all of the stuff in regards to hardware. There's also a new Surface Hub 2S coming. I don't know if that'll be at the event. I've mentioned it in my roundup here, but that's supposed to ship this fall. Comes with an 11th gen Intel Core i5, which is, to be fair, a massive upgrade over the 8th gen laptop processor found in the current Surface Hub 2S. That will also finally support rotation. If you remember when they announced the Surface Hub 2 originally, it was like a thing that could rotate into portrait or landscape, but then the 2S launched and it couldn't do that. This new 2S will finally enable rotation, and it also ships with a new version of Windows called Teams Rooms on Windows. What won't we see? Surface Pro 10 and Laptop 6. To my knowledge, those devices are not happening this year. Microsoft is saving those for the big Windows VNX push coming in 2024. So any hardware changes and stuff planned for that. Won't be making an appearance next week. That will be happening probably springtime or maybe fall next year. So if you've been holding out for one of those, I would stop doing that because you'll be very disappointed. And I think that's basically everything we're expecting.
Fair enough. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I'm excited about, as I mentioned, Laptop Studio too. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
I agree with the. It would be ideal to have a full-sized SD card slot. That said, that's pretty rare these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know many laptops that have that. I do see a few. Even Samsungs will do the micro SD.
I'm surprised they went back to add USB-A. I'm very surprised they did that.
Yeah, it's Dell's gone all Type C. They're embraced it. They do give you a dongle in the box. Microsoft could have taken that approach, but I think the idea of having what was cool is they added Type A, but they didn't remove one of the Type C Thunderbolts. I assume they're both Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. They're just literally giving you an extra port. Having that Type A around, listen, it's going to be nice. I imagine they were able to do some of this because a 13th gen chipset and everything is going to be a little bit smaller, so they could have maybe squeezed out a little bit more space and get that port in there. Regarding the micro SD thing, again, a full-size SD card slot takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And, I think, it's still better than nothing. And like I said, I don't see a lot of laptops that have like a full-size SD card slot anymore anyway. So should be kind of cool, but we'll see. Next week, we'll find out more. And as everything's official. Anyway, you went through the renders, right? Or do you want to go through the renders?
I guess I can mention it real quick. Yeah, so the official renders of the Laptop Studio 2 and the Laptop Go 3 have leaked. The Laptop Go 3 renders revealed nothing, essentially, because the Laptop Go 3 is identical to the Laptop Go 2. So just take a look at the Laptop Go 2 using the Laptop Go 3. Laptop Studio 2, of course, since there are additional ports, it's slightly a bit different, but the overall design, as I mentioned, is exactly the same. The renders just simply confirm that, yes, there will be a USB-A and a micro SD card reader in addition to the stuff it already had. So, yeah, more or less just confirming what we already knew in regards to what to expect there.
Cool stuff. Before we go on, I believe you have... to talk about today's sponsor?
I do. Indeed is once again sponsoring this episode of the Windows Central podcast. When it comes to hiring, don't wait for great talent to find you. Find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for the candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a it is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you match candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. One of the things we think is pretty cool about Indeed is that they make it easy to... Oh, sorry, I've lost my way here. Candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to Indeed data, and they get you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. So even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 job-sponsored credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is good for a limited time only. That's a $75 credit now at Indeed.com/WCP. Just go to Indeed.com/WCP and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/WCP. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. And now let's talk a bit about SwiftKey.
Yeah, so SwiftKey was, beta, I should say. If you're not in the SwiftKey beta for Android, it's a little more tricky on iOS, but we're talking about Android here anyway. You want to go to the Play Store for the listing of SwiftKey, and then you'll scroll down, and you'll see a little area that talks about the beta, and you click it, and you just enroll. Usually takes a couple minutes, and then you can update the app. Sometimes their betas fill up, so I don't know the current status of it, so maybe filled up. But a lot of Microsoft's apps have betas in them, including Microsoft Launcher. So you can go through and do that. So what they did this week was they basically added Microsoft Editor to the keyboard, which is actually kind of neat. And how it works is when you have the little, I don't know what we call it, the little control bar or the option bar that sits on top of the keyboard itself that gives you quick access to things, and that's customizable. If you hit the three little dots, it opens up and you can get access to more features like translate, and of course there's the Bing chat icon that's there too. And you can move them around to what you prefer, which is kind of cool. And Microsoft Editor, it will be in that drop down list. They don't put it as a default thing, but I move it to the top. So how this works is as you're typing, you can like type in a window or something like that. I think you hit the Microsoft Editor button and you start typing, and then it's going to give you it'll do a grammar check, not just spell check, but a full grammar check and offer to rewrite what you're saying up to, I believe, 500 words for clarity and to make it sound a little bit better. But what's kind of neat about it too, it also has you can change the tone of what you're writing. You can make it humorous, professional, all this kind of stuff. And if that sounds familiar, it's because if you open your Bing chat on your computer and you go to like compose and stuff, like you do have these options a lot of times, or when you're doing something with Bing chat. So you can now change the tone of what you're writing, which is kind of nice. And then there is a compose feature too, which is just like the one that's on the web, where you type in what you want to write about. They give the example, invitation to my Jane Austen book club. You just like type that in up to 2,000 words, and then you can pick the tone there: professional, casual, enthusiastic, informational, or funny. And you can even add. Apparently, why would I click add? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you can even add your own tones, like relaxed and all that. And then you hit format, paragraph, email, blog post, ideas, length, short, medium, and long, and you hit generate draft. And this thing will just generate a whole like email invite if you want to do that, or if you want to write, say, something for social for Twitter. It actually has one of those for. That's kind of a difference here, actually, is it has one for social and for Twitter, and I think you can write that and it'll fill in, even giving you hashtags, which is kind of cool. And then it just allows you with one button to copy it into the main text window of whatever app you're in, or switch out if you already wrote something. It's kind of a neat feature. It does overlap a bit with Bing Chat, because Bing Chat has some of the stuff in there too, so it's a little confusing. But Bing Chat and SwiftKey, I think, is kind of cool because you can stay within it and do stuff. But I feel like Microsoft Editor makes a little bit more sense. And this isn't like completely unheard of. I've talked about Samsung before. The Samsung's keyboard on Android has integration with Grammarly. And then if you have Grammarly Pro, you can log into your account through it. And basically, as you type, it'll use Grammarly, will add commas and all this kind of stuff to what you're doing, which is kind of, I find, really useful. I really like Grammarly. I actually think Grammarly is superior to Microsoft Editor. That said, what I'm writing on my phone, it's a lot less than what I'm writing on my desktop. So when I'm on my desktop, I'll write like whole articles, and Grammarly is much better for that. When I'm on my phone, it's little emails, it's text messages, it's smaller content. Microsoft Editor is actually pretty fine for that, in my opinion. So this is just kind of a neat use of putting these tools and a little bit more AI into direct access on your Android phone. Now, I imagine iOS will probably get this too, but last I checked when I did this a couple days ago, it wasn't in there, but I don't see why it wouldn't. That got Bing Chat too. So it probably should get Microsoft Editor. But you'll see it's a little icon that looks like a pen and all this kind of stuff. But it's I don't know. It's a good use of this because it makes you a better writer. Granted, if you're just texting your best friend, who cares about spelling mistakes? If you're writing though with THO, that stuff's fine. But if you're for people writing, like, say, professional emails for work and productivity, which is Microsoft's bag, having this ability to on the fly rewrite what you wrote to make it sound, say, more professional. If you want to go for a different angle, make it more funny, I think it's kind of a neat tool to do. And I think it's just a natural extension of their technologies and merging it together. I'll also say that in testing this, since I'm still using the Fold 5, that I downloaded it, tried it on there, and I was actually kind of surprised how good it is on the Fold 5. So I've actually kind of kept this my default. You are able to switch to the thumb style keyboard, just like that's on Surface Duo on the Fold, and it works really well. I actually kind of like it better than Samsung's keyboard. Now, the one downside, but it's actually not a downside, is so if you switch to the thumb keyboard for the tablet mode, when you close it and you're using the cover screen, it's still the thumb keyboard. So you still have like a little split. Turns out though, that's actually pretty good. I
Oh.
think I actually type better with it like that than if it was just a monolith keyboard that we usually see on smartphones. Of course, if you just have a Pixel phone and single screen phone or whatever, you can go do this yourself and try it. You can just turn on the thumb keyboard um, for any format and try it. But you might actually like it. You might find a little bit more ergonomic and sorry, make fewer mistakes while you're typing. I just swallowed wrong, so I think I'm going to die. But yeah, I mean, not much else to say about it. SwiftKey still getting better. I like it. I'm actually surprised. I've been using the Samsung keyboard for a while. With Samsung, I talked about Good Lock before. They have one of the Good Lock apps is like you can literally make your own keyboard, which is crazy. Like not only can we're used to customizing software keyboards. It's like, oh, I'll make it bigger. And what it does is it resizes the entire keyboard, right? It makes it a little bit taller or you can make it a little bit wider. We're used to that. With Samsung's Good Lock, you can actually resize individual keys, which I thought was funny because I kept missing the space bar when I type and I would hit B all the time. So I would just make the space bar taller and a little bit wider, but all the other key size would stay the same. Now it pushes things out of the way a little bit, of course, but having that precision is a pretty cool thing. But that said, I'm back to using SwiftKey on the Fold for the foreseeable future just because I'm more accurate with it. So cool stuff, but that's SwiftKey. We're sure that this will roll out to the production version. Oh yeah, and I should mention, it was a little bit buggy when I was trying it. I know Shane Craig, he was trying it too. He actually had a video about this where he demos how it works. But yeah, a couple of times, and I haven't tried it since, but when you type in something and you go to do it, because what it's doing is connecting to the web and uploading your thing and bringing it back down. It was having connectivity issues and just sort of like timing out or erroring out and stuff like that. That's just back end server stuff. I'm sure they can tweak it and fix it as it goes forward. Hopefully that will go there. But that's an ongoing kind of problem, I think, with Microsoft's AI initiative, the online stuff. The performance is always a little bit slow.
Yeah.
It's like weird on my smartphone. A lot of times I feel like I could just type faster or just get the quick Google results or the Bing results and just get my answer what I need instead of waiting it for it to do it. Although last night I did use it and it was kind of neat because I then switched to another app and Bing Chat was, audibly reading back the answer to me. And it worked in the background too. So I was already in another app doing something else. And I'm hearing her rattle off the whole answer. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So there you go.
Also,
Have you tried any of this stuff?
I don't know if you mentioned it, but this update also added AI to SwiftKey on the Surface Duo, didn't it? Finally, so if for those who don't remember, when AI first came to SwiftKey, Bing Chat, that is Bing Chat integration. For some reason, the Surface Duo was omitted, and we asked Microsoft why this was, and they were just like, "Yeah, we have nothing to share," which was not a good sign. But for some reason, this latest beta update does, in fact, enable Bing Chat and the AI stuff, as Dan just mentioned, on the Surface Duo. So good news for Surface Duo users. You will be getting this stuff at some point. No idea why it took them so long, but hey, better late than never, I guess.
That's because that's the job of Frank. Remember Frank?
Yeah.
Frank works in the back, and that's all he does is Frank's a little old and he's a little slow these days. He's got other things to do, but Frank will get around to it eventually. That's what happened here.
Appreciate
It's a
that,
Surface
Frank.
Duo. I should have my Duo 2 charged up. I've been meaning to kind of go back and play with
we
it
should
a
also
little bit, 'cause it is such a
on
go ahead.
the subject of the Duo, we should mention that the original Surface Duo is now officially out of support
Oh, yeah.
as of September 10th. I think we talked about this last week, but we'll mention it again. No longer getting any OS or security updates. It officially received 2 major Android version releases. It shipped with Android 10, then it got an update to Android 11, way later than it should have. I think that launched in early 2022 for the original Surface Duo. And then Android 12L launched late 2022 after Android 13 was finalized. And that's the last update it will ever get. So it will not be getting an Android 13 update or an Android 14 update to my knowledge, because the date has passed where Microsoft is legally obligated to provide them. And so it won't anymore. So there you are. RIP Surface Duo.
It was fun while it lasted. Will we get a Surface Duo 3? Who knows? It
Who
probably won't be called a
knows?
Duo 3, but
Yeah,
man, I don't want to start talking about that, but just like I want them to do it. There's no
me
doubt I
too.
want them to do it. I
Me too.
still want a productivity, Microsoft focused Android device that allows me to do inking and integrates with, as many services as they can. I just don't know how they now walk back and
I know,
sell
right?
this.
It's terrible. They've put themselves in such a corner because it's like, yeah, you guys have proven yourselves as the company that cannot support an Android phone well at all. The way they've treated the Duo and its customers is awful, and nobody should go back to Microsoft at any point in the future to buy a phone from them because of how they've treated the Duo. They did the whole Windows thing and Windows Phone thing. It was like, okay, fine, we see why Windows Phone died. The app gap problem was real, this, that, and the other. But this is an Android phone. There's no excuse. Yet they still managed to support it so poorly, and it's kind of just unbelievable. So now, if Microsoft does come back with a new phone at some point, it's like I will buy it. I don't know why, but I will, and Dan will probably get one as well. But can we recommend it to people, even if it's a good phone? It's like, yeah, but it's Microsoft. Microsoft made the phone. They might stop supporting it in 2 years. Like it's just. Oh, it's such a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard enough sell in the first place. And conceptually, it was a great
Yeah,
device, right? It was like, oh, at least it's something. It's not a slab phone. But then it was like, all right, but Microsoft's never made an Android smartphone before. Like,
yeah,
it's not something you just walk into, especially because it's a Surface team. That's not to slight the Surface team. I just mean that they
they're
operate on, I would
small.
say, a more strict
Yeah,
budget, smaller teams. They're not a hardware company. They're not like LG or Samsung who are going to like
mhm.
hire 20,000 people to start designing and working on a smartphone. It's literally a couple hundred people. And I don't even know if a couple hundred people were on this. It might have been even less than 100 doing the software bit.
Yeah.
So they already had a tough enough problem convincing people. And then, of course, it came out and it was just exactly what people said. It was like, yeah, cool idea, buggy as hell. So that you already have that problem. Now it's like you got that combined with well, you got rid of the other two. We haven't seen a new phone from you guys in like 3 years. It's like,
Yeah,
what's going on here? Yes.
that to me is the biggest problem is not being able to refresh the hardware annually. Phones move too fast. It's not like PCs where you can sort of get away with going 18 months, 2 years between refreshes. With phones, you have to be there yearly, otherwise people forget about you and people move on. And there's more to it than that as well because it shows commitment. Could you imagine if Apple stopped updating the iPhone every year? That'd be wild. Or
Right.
Samsung or
And they
Pixel.
didn't even comment.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. They didn't say that they would do it. They just didn't do it one year. Be like, what the hell? What's happening? That's the thing with the Duo. Like they should have done if they were truly committed to the idea of making phones, they would have done a Surface Duo S or Surface Duo 2S in 2023. Sorry, 2022 last year. That's right. Even if they didn't have a new sort of phone ready, they could have done an updated model with a newer processor or maybe slightly better cameras.
that's
They
all.
don't
You and I
have
would
to.
have been totally fine
Yep,
with that.
they don't
We would have
have
been
to.
faster with happy with a newer processor, slight updates to the
Yep.
camera. Yeah, that's all that would have been. I
They
would have been
don't
like, all
need
right,
to
cool, yeah,
reinvent the
sure.
wheel every year. They just need to show commitment, and they
Yep.
failed to do that. And so now I don't know if I can recommend any future phone from Microsoft because who knows if there will be another one. Why invest your time on
In
this
the way
product line?
in the way foldables are moving, the foldable thing's gonna be. What sucks about the foldable market right now is we're basically, in Western markets, a slave to Samsung and what they
Yeah,
do.
right.
Although Pixel's there now with the Pixel Fold, and that's kind of a neat option. But Google and Pixel, they have the same kind of issue as Microsoft. They're just not widely as known. They're not widely as supported. There's been troubles with it already. The Pixel Fold, uh, so it's a little bit rougher, and we don't have the Chinese brands. Like in right now, if we didn't put the sanctions against Huawei, we would
Right.
have
Yeah.
Huawei foldables here, and Huawei's been doing some pretty incredible stuff recently. But we don't have that, and we don't have a lot of the other Chinese band like Oppo and stuff like that. So we got to wait for Samsung to do something, and that kind of sucks. It should have competition in the Western market with a couple different options.
Hmm.
Um, but the way this stuff is evolving so quickly, it's like, I don't know. I don't know where they're going to be with this stuff. Yeah, was it Oppo who came out with the one just within the last 2 weeks and it's like super thin.
Honor,
It's like,
the Honor Magic V2.
oh, the Honor.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got the world's thinnest foldable, which to my knowledge is about the same thickness. Or no, it's 0.1 millimeters thinner than the Surface Duo original was, or the Surface Duo 2 at least, which is
Yeah.
wild. Remember the
And it has
Surface.
a big battery in it
Yeah,
too.
as a big battery. Remember the big sort of selling point of the Surface Duo was that it was incredibly thin, and they could get away with that because it had two screens versus a foldable screen, which usually required more space in the hinge department. But Honor's managed to figure it out, and they've made a phone with a foldable screen that is thinner than the Surface Duo, which is just
And a bigger battery. Yeah, they're using new battery technology that makes it basically more
yeah.
dense, and of course has a better display and all this kind of stuff.
But
I mean, this stuff is moving quickly.
yeah,
Even Samsung is just like, whoa.
there's constant innovation happening here. Can Surface even keep up? Like the
Well,
design.
and that's why I'm just kind of mentioning too, right? Because it's like Samsung can't keep up.
Yeah, you're
like,
right.
like it's Samsung, right? But they're getting like, if everything was equal and you could just buy these Chinese foldables and run Google software, and they would be the much better purchase than the Samsung one. But
Yeah.
we only have access to Samsung, so it is what it is. But Samsung was clearly behind a lot of the Chinese manufacturers with this stuff, and that's really telling. So yeah, what chance does Microsoft have? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress. Thunderbolt 5 is official. I don't want to harp on this too long, but for those who've been wanting, we're bored with Thunderbolt 4. Thunderbolt 5 is coming out. So it was officially announced by Intel this week. It's you'll start to see it in devices in 2024, of course, with the newer chipsets coming out. All right, so what's the difference? We got a little graph here that's saying so today you can do two 4K monitors with Thunderbolt 4, which is nice at 60 hertz. Tomorrow you'll be able to do multiple 8K monitors at 60 hertz and up to 540 hertz for gamers, which is absurd. And now you'll be able to do three 4K monitors at 144 hertz, which is amazing. If you're a gamer, man, you could like set up three displays at 100. Like that'd be pretty impressive. For data, you can now do 32 gigabytes per second of data bandwidth. That's going to be doubled, which is really nice. PC connection, second cable for charging. Oh yeah, that's right. They improved the wattage. You go up to 240 watts now for charging. So that's cool because gaming laptops and laptops with beefier GPUs have been kind of left out of the ability to have a single cable charging device. So you still have to have like a proprietary one. Razer has sort of their bricks have definitely shrunk down. The actual brick part is actually pretty small, but it's a thick cable and has a proprietary connector because Type-C Thunderbolt doesn't have enough power to go through. But having 240 watts is going to be pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, you can do 80 gigabytes in bidirectional modes or 120 gigs for one-way transformation. It's all good stuff. It's exactly what you think it is. It basically is doubling what Thunderbolt 4 does. And because displays have gotten so advanced, back in the day it was like, oh, a 4K 60, can my computer handle that via Type-C? Now people are like, I need multiple 4K displays. It's like, okay. Then everybody's like, then a lot of people are like, yeah, 60 hertz sucks. I need 120 hertz. I need 144 hertz. Or yeah, if you're some gamer who needs a 540 hertz refresh rate monitor, how do you handle that? Or 8K is slowly becoming a thing. It's gonna take a little while, I think, for 8K to go into the market. Although I'm operating at a 6K monitor, so that's kind of cool. But 8K will make Zach happy because 8K sounds absurd on a 27-inch monitor, which it kind of is.
Yeah.
It would look amazing. Don't get me wrong. But 8K makes sense if, say, you're using a 32-inch monitor or 35-inch,
Yeah,
or
35 inch.
or you're going to ultra wide, right? Ultra wide always has this
That's
weird
right.
problem where it's like it technically is rendering a ton of pixels, but it's spread out so cross and diagonal, or sorry, horizontally, that you're not technically getting an effective high resolution display. This will be able to solve all that
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, cool. Thunderbolt 5, we'll see Surface devices get support for it in 2025. I'm kidding, hopefully. But it's all good stuff. I mean, Thunderbolt 5 is going to be really nice for next gen hardware. It's funny. Years ago, I got a Dell Thunderbolt, I think Thunderbolt 4, portable SSD. to the little enclosures and stuff like that. And it even has a little fan in it, which is hilarious. It's very quiet, but it's in there. And it's cool, but I haven't been able to use it. I wasn't able to use it as much because 2, 3 years ago, most laptops still didn't have Thunderbolt. You were getting Type C ports, but you weren't getting a lot of Thunderbolt ones until Intel kind of made it like they took, they basically made it the default thing. But even like Surface devices where like you couldn't use it. So this thing it's not backwards compatible. You plug it into a Type C thing, it wouldn't work at all. But now pretty much all my laptops have the right ports. They have Thunderbolt 4, and the thing is so good. Like you and I have to like benchmark laptops and stuff like that. A lot of benchmarking software is just like massive, and just the ability to transfer this thing over. It's like you drop it. It's like copying a JPEG over. It's just like, oh, okay, it's done. Right. So this stuff is going to be really important. Especially if you're working photo and video, right, and you're offloading photo and video from your camera. Like having Thunderbolt 5 is going to be a really big deal. So all cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, there we go. HP came out of nowhere. We were briefed on this about last week on this, which I was holding on to the secret here. Came out of nowhere and announced a 17-inch foldable PC. And that was pretty much a surprise. And this falls under their Spectre brand. Spectre is their top-tier premium consumer brand. So it's called the HP Spectre Foldable PC. 17-inch display. Let me go through the specs here. It's a 3x4, 17-inch, 2.5K, so 2560 by 1920, foldable OLED with touch and stylus support, 400 to 500 nits of max brightness, VESA True Black, HDR 500, 99.5% DCI-P3, and for the first time, IMAX Enhanced Certified. What that means is IMAX. So this is the thing now. If you have Disney Plus, you might see this, and it's becoming more and more popular with as an option for streaming. Where if a director shoots in IMAX, they get the taller aspect ratio. Basically, it fills the screen more and all that kind of stuff. A lot of TVs aren't made for it, so you would get like boxing and stuff like that. But because of the aspect ratio of this, it kind of just fills the screen, and they worked with IMAX, and it's certified that this thing's going to be really good basically for watching movies, and all the new movies coming out that have this IMAX option. Like for instance, Oppenheimer, which I still haven't seen, unfortunately. That was shot famously in IMAX, right? So there's going to be an IMAX version of that, and that's going to look amazing on this device. So that's the display. CPU, Intel Core i7-1250U. This is a little bit of the weak spot. It's a 12th gen series, so that's weird that they're not using 13th gen. They're using 12. It is a new next gen architecture, so you're getting the big small cores here, P and E cores. It is a U series though, so that's the lower ends because you have U, P, and H, and then technically HX. Now, I've run a lot of laptops with the U series processor, and it blows away anything like 11th gen Ultrabook. It is faster. But it's interesting that they didn't put like a more powerful CPU in there. But they also this thing is very thin. So unfolded, this is crazy. Unfolded, it's 8.5 millimeters.
That's wild. That is wild.
That's thinner than like your smartphone.
Yeah.
Like that's what you were just talking about, the smartphone, the who was it? The Honor. I think that's like around what this is in terms of thickness. This is like very, very thin. So to have a device like that, and then when it closes, it's 21.4 millimeters completely. But it's a very thin device. So and that translates to weight. Without the keyboard, it's 2.99 pounds or 1.35 kilograms. That's pretty light for a 17-inch screen that's a foldable. With the keyboard, it's 3.6 pounds. So this thing is still under 4 pounds. This thing is very portable, is what I'm trying to say. It's going to be a big 17-inch screen that has great resolution and one of the best displays you're going to find anywhere. But this thing can like really, turn to a small thing. Because of that U series chip, though, they were able to put in 2 batteries, but it acts as one, which they said was really tough to kind of figure out the engineering to make sure Windows only saw it as one battery. But combined, it's a 94.3 watt hour battery. Now, the legal limit for travel is 99 watt hours. Right? That's in the Dell XPS 15. Like Ultrabooks don't get 94 watt hour batteries. There are none. You'll start to see that approach in like 15-inch laptops. So the Dell XPS 15 famously has a 99 watt hour battery, but that's kind of what's in this thing, which is crazy. So if you combine that with a U series processor, which does get pretty good battery life already, but you also, powering a 17-inch high resolution display, this thing should actually get pretty decent battery life out of it. It has 16 gigs of RAM, LPDDR5, so it's the fast kind. 1 terabyte NVMe PCIe Gen 4 SSD, also the fast kind. It has 2 USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 with power delivery for ports. It supports 100-watt USB Type-C fast charging. Again, that's different. A lot of Ultrabooks only support up to 65 watt. This does 100 watt. They're using the max limit, basically, of Thunderbolt 4 at this point, which means, this thing will recharge quickly, too. And I already mentioned the weight. So let's talk about a little bit about the design of this. What's different? First of all, that battery is perfectly balanced in this device in each half, basically. So they made the device so, it's perfectly balanced. You're not going to have, one heavy end or something like that, And that's a challenge in engineering. Obviously, you can use it as a 17-inch display, and it has a keyboard with it. But what's cool is they built the kickstand into the device itself. It's in the spine of the device, and it pops out. It's like a leg, and it pops out, and you could just set it up. That improves upon Lenovo's, which came with this origami kind of stand that you had to carry with you. And it was magnetic. It stuck with it. It was kind of cool. But you have to basically set up the stand, unfold it, and then put the screen down. This you pull out the little kickstand, and you're good to go. Connect up the keyboard, and you're all set. Of course, the keyboard is Bluetooth, so there's no physically connecting it. Now, let's say you want to fold it into the laptop mode. So they did a couple things here. So this does have a gap when it closes, but they use that gap to their advantage because now you can stick the keyboard in there and close it and carry it. Now it'll look like a book, right? It's going to be like a solid device. But it means the keyboard doesn't need to stick to the outside or as a separate carrying device. You just keep the keyboard in there, close it, you're good to go. Pen also sticks magnetically to it. Now, what's cool about the keyboard is it is Bluetooth, and it sticks magnetically to the device, as you would expect, so it won't shift around, but it charges wirelessly. So, again, Lenovo requires you to charge the keyboard via a Type-C connection and the keyboard itself. Now, the keyboard, to be fair, lasts a long time, so you're not charging it like a lot, but it's one less thing you need to worry about. As soon as you put this keyboard onto the device itself, it's going to start getting a charge from it, and you're good to go, which is pretty wild. The pen, too, also wirelessly charges. So, you connect up to it and does that kind of thing. So now when you close it, you use it as a laptop. So you open it up. It's a 12.3-inch Ultrabook. So still kind of a small screen. The bezels are pretty thin on it. They're not, I'd say they're thinner than the Lenovo ones, but we have to check. The display is made by LG, by the way. We did get confirmation on that. But what's kind of neat then is, and this is the trick they did. So you have the keyboard. By the way, the keyboard is well, how would I say this? On Lenovo's dual screen device and Lenovo's original foldable, they didn't have touchpads. They use on screen or another solution. The 16-inch one, which we haven't seen yet, does have a touchpad. But this keyboard is a full-size keyboard with a full-size touchpad on it. It is mechanical. It's not haptic, which was, I think, a missed opportunity. But so you get everything. But you can take this keyboard now, and you can slide it down, basically slide it towards you. And when you do that, it'll leave the magnets, and then it'll hit 2 other magnets, and then lock back into place. And the keyboard itself kind of has a floppy section where the touchpad is, and it'll drop down. So you're kind of now at an angle with kind of like a wrist rest. And the keyboard is a little bit closer to you. And now you have 1.5 inch of display space above the keyboard, which then turns into a second display. And you can use that display for anything. It's big enough where you can put in stuff. You can actually split it. You can put in like something on one half, something on the other half. So you can basically put a video you're watching if you're taking notes. Like you can think about different ways of switching this around. Now, it doesn't pop up like at an angle, so you're still gonna be it's gonna be like a flat screen, but that's still a pretty cool use of Windows and having this extra display. So that's again something that we've seen Lenovo kind of do that, but in order to do that, their keyboard doesn't have a touchpad, right? So it just slides back, and then the screen has will do this similar thing. Although with Lenovo's, it operates on widgets. It's not a true secondary screen. This will operate as a true secondary screen. They also worked with Microsoft on snapping. This actually has snapping support zones for this device specifically. So they don't need to rely on sort of kludgy software of theirs to make things happen. So using the Windows control thing should be able to snap windows all around, which is kind of wild. And of course, you could just keep the keyboard separate from the device itself. So when you're in desktop mode, 17-inch display, the keyboard can be in front of you, lay flat, and you're good to go. And then finally, of course, you can lay this thing completely flat, and it locks into place, and it's a big 17-inch gorgeous tablet, which is going to be absolutely amazing if you're an artist or need to draw or you want to take notes. And it's 3 pounds, so it's not a light tablet if you're thinking about that sense of like holding it in your hand for a long time, but it'll be definitely a productivity-based tablet, I guess you can say. No 5G support, so I'm a little sad about that. But listen, we can't get everything. It does have quad DTS-X Ultra speakers. So they divide the speakers up appropriately so that whatever position the device is in, it's going to sound good. As a 5-megapixel IR-equipped front-facing camera, and HP does some of the best front-facing cameras, and has a privacy switch on it as well. Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3. Is on there, meaning your Bluetooth and a Bluetooth keyboard should actually operate really, really well. And it comes in a slate blue finish. So they're expecting 12 hours of battery life tested by streaming Netflix. Yeah, streaming video is one of the easier things you can do on an Intel processor. So I believe that number is going to be very accurate. The question is, all right, but what about real work on it? From my experience, just from seeing those kind of numbers, it's probably going to be a 6 to 7 hour laptop, I would say. I don't know if you could push 8, but I say confident right now without testing it. You could definitely probably get 6 hours, probably push it to 7 hours, maybe 8 if we're lucky. But with that 94 watt hour battery, actually it might be higher than that. I don't know. This thing potentially could get really good battery life. So that is pretty much that. Oh, wait, yes. I should say you can pre-order it right now. It is available at Best Buy. HP.com will be selling it. It comes out later in October, I think later October. And then HP.com will start selling it.
It sounds like it could be maybe like a $500 laptop.
And that's where the bombshell drops. It costs no less than $4,999.99.
Oh my God, that is insane.
Now you do get everything. You get the keyboard and the pen.
Yeah, I hope so.
you hope so. It is not cheap.
$5,000.
I think it's because of that display. This thing is they went all in on the display.
How much? Do you remember how much? Was it Asus? Asus had a 17-inch foldable, right? They're shipping one. Do you remember how much that was?
I don't. We did review that too.
Because I'm wondering, because I feel like this is way out there. This is way more expensive than the other foldables so far. Because the original,
that was called.
Sorry,
yeah, that's called the ZenBook 17 Fold OLED.
Was that? I feel like that was maybe $3,000 at most, unless I'm misremembering, and it was also like a $5,000 thing. So Lenovo is supposed to be shipping a 16-inch foldable at some point. They've announced it like I want to say almost a year ago, and it's still not shipping. I'm wondering if maybe that's also going to be eye-wateringly expensive. Is there really that big of a difference between 13-inch foldable and a 16-inch foldable or 17-inch foldable?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's because of the display technology, right? This is, it's $3,500 was the Asus. Yeah, so significantly more expensive. That said, I think this is going to be better way better device.
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, it's second gen, at least, well, it's technically third gen, I would say, of this kind of technology, and to uh, Asus's credit, they were first, so they've got to have some challenges there. But this thing is, let's see what the specs were. So it weighed 3.31 pounds, so it wasn't that heavy. Its battery, though, was only 75 watt hour. It did have a 17-inch display, similar resolution. Um, Ironically, running the same processor, 12th gen, Core i7 1250U. That's kind of interesting. But it's a 17.3-inch built-in speakers, Bluetooth. Yeah, it has like some similar features, smaller battery, and I would say the display is just not nearly as sophisticated. I'd also say Asus, when it comes to audio, is not quite
So
as good.
I have to assume that HP is not intending to sell many of these for £5 a pop. This is certainly going to be a niche market product for them.
Yeah, and that's fine. I know people complain about it and all that, but like, listen, this is how technology works, right? It's trickle down. It always has been. Uh, Everything starts off super expensive, and then it comes down to price. You just mentioned about, what was it, the laptop Go 3 or 4 or whatever, it was going to have used to have eMMC memory. Now they're switching to PCIe, NVMe. Like, that's just a cost thing. As PCIe and NVMe storage comes down in price, then they can put it into more affordable things. Just like, I keep throwing out the example. The first 4K TV cost $20,000.
Yeah, right.
Like, and that's true. Look it up. It's like, I'm not being exaggerating here. It's $20,000. So like, if we had that same feeling back then, like, oh my God, who's going to buy a $20,000 TV? Like, we'll never. That sucks. I want 4K. Now you can buy 4K for like under $1,000 easily, and it's like 4K is just standard and normal. But it took a couple years to get there, right? Same thing with 4K in laptops and OLED in laptops. So this stuff, it's expensive now. It's totally for early adopters and people with disposable income. But I'll be honest, like, this idea of having a 17-inch display when you go to your hotel room to actually set up at work, and then it folds up into like a straight up regular laptop, and that theirs is simpler than Lenovo's, because Lenovo's has a lot more. Lenovo's felt like you're disassembling a laptop and then assembling one to carry it, break it, and use it. Like, that's what it kind of felt like. This one is just straightforward. It's just, you're just a keyboard, the device, and a pen. Like,
Yeah.
and you technically don't need the pen, right? So it's just the keyboard. So you just open it up and you're good to go. And then you can switch to different postures, or you set it up as a 17-inch and open a kickstand and you're using it like that. This is going to be, as far as the flow, way better to use, and I think more interesting to use. And I'm just really impressed with the design. Like, they didn't just copy someone and just like phone this in. They really spent a lot of time thinking about this. And listen, you won't be able to get one now for $5,000, but if this category takes off, this stuff will come down in price. It's just that, like, a 17-inch display of this category with IMAX certification and HDR and all this kind of stuff, and that high DCI-P3, if you don't know, is like one of the highest like standards for color accuracy. And you don't get a ton of laptops that hit 99 or 100% DCI-P3. It's only really the top tiers. To get that, plus a foldable that supports pen and inking and touch and all that kind of stuff at this size, those are very small batch displays. Like, they're very hard to manufacture. There's not a lot of customers making it or ordering them. But as more and more companies start ordering this stuff in the future, if that were to happen, the price of that display will come down. I guarantee you the cost of most of this is the display.
Yeah.
Although that battery is probably, I don't know. It's cool. So I'm going to go see this thing in October, early October. And, we should be able to get a review unit. HP has been very good with us in the past. So I'm very excited about trying this thing out. I have high hopes for it. I feel like this may be one of the first foldables that it's actually like not a lot of compromise. Like, even the Dell dual screen, has like some compromises, right? Because you do have like the keyboard, but then the touchpad is virtual. So it's like, it's not bad. It's just that it's a compromise. Or you can use the on-screen keyboard, but then it's just not as good, right? And that has a separate keyboard So you got to carry the keyboard and the origami stand separately. They wrap together from the device itself. So it's like it's more parts where this is less. So I don't know. HP, I think, really did a great job. Um, but we'll see what happens. Uh, quickly, where are we at? Oh, hour and 17 minutes. So much for being a short podcast. New iPhones, Apple Week happened, Wanderlust, whatever it was called. Um, no huge surprises, I would say. They updated the iPhones. I'm sure most of you people know. They've, at least on the Pros, they added a titanium frame to it, which makes them lighter and more durable. The Pro Max is kind of the big story because it got improved cameras, especially a zoom lens that's really supposed to be good and has all this cinema grade quality software and all this kind of stuff. So it's really for the Pro Max is really for the pro user who does professional videography and photos. You're going to really kind of want that phone. It did go up by $100, which is not great, but it just means it's the same price as the S23 Ultra. So,
Right.
you can't really fault them for that. Also announced new Apple Watches, which finally got their first processor upgrade in 3 years, which is good. And they didn't change too much about them otherwise. There's some new colors and all that kind of stuff. The Ultra got refreshed as well. Um, oh yeah, and then they showed off it with the watch. It was a cool. They did the double tap thing, which is like you can use the watch without touching it now. So like say you're wear your watch on your left hand and you're carrying a coffee in your right, and a phone call comes in, like you want to answer it on your watch, like you have to put the coffee down and tap the button or use your nose
Yeah.
if you could do that. Now you can just when you bring your wrist up, you just double tap your finger and thumb together, and you can answer the call and hang up the call. You can do single tap and like scroll menus and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty wild. It turns out this has been existing in Apple Watches though for a while. It's under the accessibility features. I even had it on my Series 5 because I only use my Apple Watch at the gym, so it's hard for me to justify buying new ones. But it's there on the Series 5. Does it work? No. So I turned it on. I couldn't get it work once. Although when you first set it up, it tells you to test it, and the test works. But when I've actually tried using it, I don't know, it's not working. I'll try more. But clearly, what's happening is they're using existing sensors on the device. They're just paired together better and with algorithms to detect movement in your hand. I think it's pretty genius. And the sensors they're probably using in the Series 9 now are going to be a higher grade and more accurate than the previous series. So it works better. And people who've tested it so far said it's actually it hasn't failed when they've tried it. So I think that's kind of neat. I think it's a pretty big innovation. That's also the same gesture that they're using with the Vision Pro. So clearly Apple's kind of like, priming the pump here for people to get used to using
Yeah.
gestures and specifically that gesture. So that was kind of nice. I don't know. Was there anything else that was
The iPhone
oh
is now USB-C compatible.
yeah, the biggest part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Yeah, Apple finally, I would say came around, but we all know the real reason is
Yeah.
the EU was going to force Apple to adopt Type C. So Apple just, bit the bullet, went Type C, and came out basically proclaiming how good it is. And we're all like, yeah, we've been using it for 5 years. Thank you. This is great, right? Because God, I would take my iPhone with me because I do use it for my Apple Health stuff. I use it with my Aura Ring and my Apple Watch. So I take it when I travel just so I can sync that stuff up. It's really kind of stupid. Uh, but it was just also meant I had to carry the Apple cable with me too. It's just like it's super annoying. Just being Type C is just gonna be so much better. So that's a big deal. It also has a satellite connectivity. So they already announced that last year. In an emergency situation, and you'll have cell phone coverage, it can connect to a satellite, connect you to 911 and all that kind of stuff. I think that's actually a really, really smart idea. But they're expanding it now this year with, at least in the US, with AAA. You can, if you're in a remote area and your car breaks down, probably won't happen often, but it could happen. You can now call AAA and they get your location, and they can come rescue you and all that kind of stuff and fix your car. I also think that's pretty genius, and you get that free for 2 years, which is pretty cool. I mean, this is the thing with Apple. We joke about them a lot in this podcast, but the fact is their phones and ecosystem has so many little cool features that when you add it all up, it just makes a really great experience. Like for instance, they announced this new feature with the iPhones where you can turn location on and share it with a contact. And if you're in a crowd, so you're near them, you're not like miles away. You're actually near them in the same vicinity. It will now guide you to them, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine if I was a parent and I had kids and they had their iPhones, like that would be huge. Or you're just trying to meet up with a friend and say you're at a concert or you're at some big fair and you gotta, where are you? I'm over by this place. So where the 10? Well, now you just will follow your phone. It gives a little arrow and points you to them. Like, is that a reason to go buy an iPhone alone? No, but like if you're already getting an iPhone, like that's a really cool feature to have and a really smart use of technology, I would say.
It's this sort of
And
thing
that's
though
just
that's really pulling people in. It's the whole ecosystem aspect. It's the
mhm.
ecosystem of Apple, and now this idea that other iPhones now work together for things like AirTags and whatnot. The whole AirTag network is because it works through iPhones. You can track an AirTag miles away because it's pinging a nearby iPhone, and that iPhone's pinging other iPhones, and it's traveling all the way back to you. It's well, maybe it's not exactly that way, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea of an ecosystem and network is really putting people, especially in America. Apple is big in America, way bigger than I think it is
Yes.
anywhere else. And I can see why. Honestly, every time an Apple event comes around, whether it's for new Macs or a new iPhone or something, I'm looking there and I'm a bit envious. I'm like, yeah, they've got it all sorted. They've got it all going on over there. Everything you would need, you can get in. For most of it, you can get in an Apple ecosystem. The only thing you can't get currently is a foldable phone. If Apple made a foldable
Yeah.
phone this year, I would probably have ordered it.
And I think, obviously they're going to get there. I think they'll probably do a foldable um, iPad first.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they will. And then they'll probably bring it down to the phone at some point.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Now, I don't have a lot of friends that are on Apple. So a lot of my friends are like would be Android or
Well,
something like that.
that's quite rare for America, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I know a lot of people too, especially in the tech industry, uh, who are friends of mine, almost all have iPhones.
Yeah.
Michael Fisher, the exception.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
still
He's a
an Android
foldable
user.
boy.
Yeah, and he uses Android for the same reason I do, which is it's just the hardware is more interesting and
Yeah.
more cutting edge. It's where the innovation's happening.
So
But
in one
I
of
know
his videos, real quick, he opens. I think it's the Pixel Fold review. Maybe it's not. I can't remember. Maybe it's a. I can't remember what it was. But he starts it with he says, "I require novelty." And I'm like, yes, so do I. I love a phone that has a stupid gimmick. I love it. I want a phone with stupid gimmicks. I don't want a boring
it's hard to get
slab.
excited. Like I guarantee, like you see all this stuff with the iPhone, and
Yeah.
I guarantee when you go and pick up the new one, 90% of it's going to feel very familiar,
Oh
very
yeah.
had last year's model.
Absolutely.
I've had this experience where I go get the new iPhone and it's just like it's like, oh, cool, the inbox. They just do such a nice job. You pick it up, it's like, oh, nice. And you start using it, and you're like, this kind of mostly feels the same. As well, it's partly because their home screen is
Yeah.
very mono, and it's just like it's not that exciting, but like I know, like, oh, it's got a new A17 processor, it's 2 times as fast for this and that. Yeah, but it's like most of us just use our phones as phones, right? We're doing email, text messaging,
Yeah.
social networks, all this kind of stuff. For that stuff to say that you're gonna feel like no one's really complaining, like on the iPhone 14, like, oh, this thing is slow. My apps
Right.
take forever to open. Like it's just not. They're always fast. Um, so I appreciate it. They made a big deal about the GPU being much faster, and it can do ray tracing now, which is great if you game on phones. I
Right.
don't. Like not when we have handheld pocket PCs now. That can game on the level of a laptop. It's like, nah, they'll use this thing with a big screen. And plus, they still have the stupid island, thing, which if you're going to game on a phone, I don't know, it just looks like an eyesore. But listen, I think they're great phones. Would I upgrade from the 14 to the 15? If I could get a good trade-in value, I guess I would. But I would say that it'll be diminishing returns
Yeah.
in regard to what's new and different.
I
But if I
think
was coming
the
from a
reason
12,
the reason that the iPhones don't change so as much as often anymore is because Apple's too mainstream to innovate now in that regard. Like they can't
fair.
really change the iPhone too much because people
Yeah.
People who don't view the iPhone as technology, they just view it as like an integral part of their life, don't care that, or they get annoyed if
Yeah.
things change too much. It's like Windows users. The majority of Windows, because Windows is the mainstream platform, any change that happens to Windows gets complained about in the media. People don't like it. Every new version of Windows comes along, people are like, I don't like it, don't like the changes, don't know how they move the start button, this, that, and the other. It's because Windows is mainstream, so it's a lot more difficult to make changes to it. I think the iPhone is now in the same place where they can't really change it too much without upsetting everyone.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that's
true.
why we don't see innovation there anymore. Whereas other companies, Apple could very easily make a new line of phones which is more experimental, but they seemingly don't. Apple's very conservative when it comes to the product lines they ship for some reason.
No, it's true. I have my iPhone 13 mini, which I traded the 12 mini in for because it's the last mini that they
Yeah.
make, and because again I don't really use the iPhone much. I use it at the gym, and so at the gym the mini is awesome because it fits in my pocket and it's a mini. I will say the Apple Watch for me mostly at the gym serves as a counter. A little bit at the heart rate thing. I use it to measure in between sets and wait till my heart rate decreases. It is 80% though a glorified Spotify controller. So I can just jump through my music and control my volume on my headphones. I find that useful. Um, I will say I've used regular iPhones in the past. I've used them as my main phones too for certain durations, and I've always been happy with it. It's been fine. Like I use them, and I'm like, yep, it's a nice phone. No problems whatsoever. Um, I've been swayed a little bit because today is the day everything's on sale, and pre-order and all that. Of course, they're selling out and all that kind of stuff, and I've been kind of tempted, but again, they won't take my S23 Ultra as a trade-in. It's like, really? So I would have to go sell it if I wanted to. Technically, it's Samsung, so I probably shouldn't anyway. Um, but I haven't. I would get the Pro Max if I was going to go into this, just because going from a Mini to the Pro Max would definitely give me the
Wild, yeah.
biggest change. Then I would actually feel like this is a new experience. Um,
See, I always go for
but
the normal iPhone only because I know I'm not going to be an iPhone user for
that's
long.
true. I know.
So
Yeah, I know.
it's
So
no
I
point.
might make that decision too, right? Because yeah, I would have to like get funds somewhere to
Yeah.
make this happen, and they're already sold out of like was it the 250? I always go for the 256. Whatever the lowest storage is, I always go for because I switch phones every couple of years. Everything's up in the cloud. I don't have
Yeah.
problems with
Yeah.
local storage. Uh, but they already had like were sold out of the 256, and I was just like, well, then I guess I'm not gonna get one. So, but we'll see. I don't know. I might just pick one up just for the heck of it. But I'm using the Fold 5 right now, and the Fold 5 is just that's a different level of a device. It's
Yeah,
just
I know.
it's just crazy to be able to open that thing up and have a tablet and that whole experience. And the battery life has been incredible for me. So it's just like, speaking of, actually, I haven't even, I should send out a photo of this. I haven't done that yet. I did get and it's funny because I'm friends with D Brand, and I should have just asked them to send me one because they would have, but I bought it. So because but I got the leather
The leather one.
back
Yeah.
for the Fold, and this just like adds this like extra because it's real leather. Um, it adds just an extra level of just like one, it feels a little grippier in my hand and nicer to hold, but it just adds a little bit more class to the device, and it's just like it's so good. I don't know why I would switch from that device to an iPhone. Uh, I know the camera would be better. That would be the one thing, right? The camera would be definitely better with the iPhone, but this camera's good enough, so it is what it is. All right. Well, that's the end of the podcast. Unless Zach get anything, are you going to get a new iPhone?
Probably not. I have an iPhone 14 Plus here, and it's basically just a camera. I use it to film videos for the website and stuff, and that's it. Otherwise, actually, I use it also for like emails because I like the Gmail app on iOS more than I do on Android. Believe it or not. But yeah, other than that, I use it to run the iOS betas. I don't think I need to upgrade. I'm not. Just wasting money. It's just because I'm not an
Yes.
iPhone user. I'm not an iPhone user. I don't.
I know. It's like I want it just because
Just
I think
to
it's
have
cool
it.
and new.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's like it would definitely be regulated to at least a second phone.
Absolutely.
I would probably try it as my primary phone for a little while, and I'd be fine with it. I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is great, and
I'd
happy
use
with
it
it.
for a
But
few weeks, and I'd be like, "Well, that was £800 for a few for a few weeks,
yeah,
and now
yeah,
it sits on my desk." So great.
yeah. So well, we'll see what happens. Anyway, thing of the week. I'll just go first. So quickly, I saw on Sunday with my best friend and my SO, Godspeed You Black Emperor. They are my by far one of my favorite bands ever. I've been listening to them nonstop recently too, which was great because I was listening to them nonstop, and then it was announced that they're coming to Worcester, where I live. And I was just like, oh, because it's literally 8 minutes away. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect, you know. And we got good balcony seats, so we could sit. We were able to sit down and just really enjoy it. And if you don't know Godspeed Your Black Emperor, just let me give you a quick tutorial on them because they're a very rare, interesting band. Technically, they're classified as post rock. They're based out of Montreal, Canada. Post rock is a weird, broad genre. It doesn't mean much. I would say that their organization, they have three guitar players, two bass players, two percussion, and a violin. No one sings, so it's all instrumental. Some of their songs go on for 17 minutes, and a lot of their music is based on movements. So the songs has different shifts and points in it. Some people have described them as crescendo core, which is hilarious because a lot of the songs start off very slow and just a couple notes, but they allowed them build up to this like amazingly epic kind of sound. It's really hard to describe. It's not music you want to throw on and just skip through the tracks or jump in the middle and all this kind of stuff. It's not pop music. It's something you need to put on. It's kind of like Pink Floyd, specifically, I would say early Pink Floyd. If you ever listen to the album Metal, and specifically the song Echoes, I think Echoes is one of the best Pink Floyd songs. It's one of the first songs that really kind of started to define their sound. But Echoes is like 17 minutes long too, and it's fantastic. But it's like that, just no singing. Um, and it's just they find little like a little repetition of a certain few notes, and they build off of that, and they layer it with the guitars, and it's just an incredible sound. When they play live, they all just sit down, except for the bass player. One of them shifts between a double bass and which is the stand-up type bass. If you haven't seen the thing, and the violin player, Sophie, she stands, but the rest are sitting down in chairs, and it's like it's an anti-rock show. Like there's no spotlights on people. They're not jumping around and like making grimacing guitar faces. They're just sitting down and playing, and behind them is a movie screen playing kind of like weird, obscure video footage that they've captured over the years that kind of goes with the music. So it's just like real like art experience almost, but um, it, it's hard to get into, I will say. If you're a musician or really like, music, it's something you could probably appreciate. But I've heard them describe this that they demand a lot from their listener because you got to kind of commit to it. And the first time you listen to it, you're gonna be like, what is this? This is noise. I don't get it. Why is this? But if you listen to it more and more, you start to kind of get the genius behind it. And they're very critically acclaimed. Like some of their albums have been rated as like the best of the decade and all this kind of stuff. So they're very popular with critics, but it's a tough kind of genre to get into. Explosions in the Sky followed them. They're a lot more mainstream, um, and their music's a lot more hopeful and positive and upbeat. Godspeed Your Black Emperor's music has been described as between pessimism and hope. So it's always weird. Some of the stuff is pretty dark, but then there's always this like very hopeful stuff that comes in through the songs as well too. Um, it's really cool. If I had to, I'll probably actually share my Spotify playlist on Twitter if you want to go listen to it. Um, my favorite song by them is Moya off of Slow Riot for New Zero Canada. They also have very weird song titles. Um, but I don't know. I If you want something different, it's great mood music. Put it in your car at night. If you're on an airplane for a long flight, you want to put it on there. If you just want to sit in bed with headphones on, it's great stuff. But people who are into them are really, really into them. So that's Godspeed. Other than that, I started watching Ahsoka on Disney. I got 3 episodes in. I love it. I think it's one of the best Star Wars series ever. I love all the characters. I love where the story's going so far. Cool lightsaber stuff. It's really well done. I'm just really happy with it. Dave Filoni writes it all. Shouldn't be a surprise. Dave Filoni's basically George Lucas part two, but he really kind of gets the whole Star Wars lore and everything and does a great job. So I'm very excited to see where that series goes. But that's for me. Zach, what's up with you?
So I started watching season 3 of the morning show, this morning show on Apple TV Plus that began on
Oh,
Wednesday. I think the first 2 episodes are out now, and the third one comes next Wednesday. Yeah, it's more of the same, really. If you enjoyed the first two seasons, so I don't think you're gonna disenjoy this third season. It's continuing on the story of, if you remember last season, they launched UBA Plus, which is their streaming service. Obviously, at the end of the last season, COVID was at the height of its disastrous attack on the world, and so obviously this is after that now, and the network is struggling, as are all streaming networks. Suddenly, it's very interesting. It's very meta, but also, for some reason, I feel like Apple is immune to this. Apple's streaming platform, for whatever reason, seems to be okay. I think it's because it's subsidized by the billions of dollars they make
Yes.
from phones and everything else. So they're probably all right. But yeah, no, so far it's looking pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I still got to resubscribe to Apple TV, but I'll probably do that after Ahsoka. Cool. Well, that does it for the podcast. We won't be back next Friday because Zach will be away,
Yep.
but maybe we'll try to catch up and do a special podcast when he gets back, but probably not. I don't think the surface stuff is going to be, unless there's something like major that happens.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll see you probably in 2 weeks. As always, follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. You can same address on Threads and Blue Sky and all the other social networks there as well. Zach is at ZACBOWDEN on Twitter and Threads as well. We do record this every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We do Q&A with the audience now, so if you ever want to join in and ask us questions, you can join us live. You can also watch the replay on YouTube as well. But as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Brilliant. So yes, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat now. We will do our best to answer them. And if there are no questions, then we will head off. Excuse me.
Oh, looks like it's no one has questions.
What scaling factor do you use on your 4K 32-inch plus monitors? I will notice the difference in text clarity if I go from 27 4K to 32 4K. Scaling factor, so it depends on... So a 4K 32-inch monitor will probably be 150, I want to say. Yes, it will be 150% scaling by default for Windows, and that will probably look the best. Your second part of your question, will I notice the difference in text clarity if I go from 27-inch 4K to 32-inch 4K? Yes, you will. It won't be drastic, but you will certainly notice it's not as crisp on the 32-inch monitor. That's why Apple's 32-inch monitor is 5K and it's 27 inches 4K, because they're both Retina. And to maintain Retina, you need to go to 5K at 32 inches. Otherwise, if it was still 4K at 32 inches, you would start to see the pixels in it. It would no longer be classed as a Retina display. Is Windows 11 23H2 coming on September 26th, or is that date going round wrong? So I mentioned this on the podcast. To my knowledge, the general availability date of Windows 11 version 23H2 is October 10th, which is Patch Tuesday for October. However, there is a week D preview phase that sometimes they put updates in, and 23H2 could ship or begin shipping then. Now, it's a preview phase, which means you won't get it unless you have that toggle ticked in Windows Update, which says, get me preview updates or the latest updates as soon as possible. If that's ticked, then you may get it on September 26th, because that's usually when week D preview updates roll out. Now, that's not a guarantee. I don't know if they will put it out as part of a preview phase on week D. If they do, September 26th is most likely when that will happen. But if they don't, then October 10th is the next port of call for when it will begin rolling out. Do you think we'll get a business release of the Surface Pro and Surface Laptop in January, like the LTE versions of Surface Pro 7? This is a good question, but to my knowledge, no. Because I think the next Surface Laptop is supposed to be a bigger upgrade, I'm not 100% confident on the plan yet for the next Surface Laptop and Surface Pro. But this is certainly a question I've also had, because I've seen some stuff that would suggest that maybe they are planning a commercial-only thing for the next Surface Pro and laptop. But I've also seen conflicting stuff, which also suggests the next laptop will be a much bigger upgrade with a new design and stuff. So still trying to figure out what the plan is there, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. With the USB 5 on the way, do you think USB 2 will finally disappear? No, the iPhone 15 just launched and it has USB 2, so we'll probably have USB 2 for many more years to come. Do you know what the holdup is for Windows Insiders not getting the new 23H2 builds in the release preview channel? No, I just think it's. I think to my knowledge, the release preview channel always gets the next update 2 weeks before general availability, and if the 23H2 release is coming on October 10th, then ideally you won't get it until September 26th. So that's 2 weeks before October 10th. Although I think it already did start getting some parts of 23H2 in the most recent build.
Do you know, guys, anyone who tried Microsoft Launcher on a flip phone, like the Motorola Razr? Yeah, Microsoft Launcher should work on there. I've used it on Samsung flips with no problems. Regarding the outside screen, I believe that's a separate launcher thing that's just built in. You can't really change it anyway. But Launcher works well on any single screen device. It has problems on, I would say, foldable tablets. It's not really optimized for that.
Yeah. Do you think with the new OneDrive UI refresh, they'll merge it with File Explorer? No. Well, no, not on Windows 11 or Windows 12, to my knowledge. There might be OneDrive may become a File Explorer experience on some future editions of Windows, but it won't be on the main version. How are you liking the Pixel Fold? I love it. I think it's the closest thing to a foldable Surface Duo out there currently. I love the size of it, the outside screen, and it's a 5.8-inch external screen, and it's small, but it's really nice. I like how wide it is. It's not as wide as the Surface Duo screen, but it's wide enough that I'm comfortable. Yeah, I love it. I love the haptics on it. I can't get over how nice the hinge is and just the sound it makes when you close it. It's just so good. It's so good. Is Surface Duo still being worked on, or should we expect Android 13 update this year or next year? I'm going to say I don't know, and probably not. I don't think there's much of a team working on Android for Surface Duo currently. Sadly to say, that could change. Maybe this year it was a thing where it was like, hey, this year we're going to focus on other things, and we will return to the Duo and deliver something awesome in 2024. That's very much hopeful, wishful thinking. But never say never. Perhaps they will return to it and deliver Android 14 or Android 15 next year for the Surface Duo 2. But can you go from an Android 12 release to an Android 14 or Android 15, or do you have to go through Android 13 to get to Android 14?
I think you gotta go 13 to 14.
Yeah, it's interesting. All of 23H2 is in the release preview channel if you install the base channel EP enablement package on yesterday's release preview. Yeah, but they've not released the enablement package yet. So, yeah, you'll probably get the enablement package stuff in the next week or two if you're in the release preview channel. I really wish the Pixel Fold had inking. Yeah, that's probably the biggest downside versus the Surface Duo is that it doesn't support pen input. The Galaxy Fold, to my knowledge, is the only foldable that supports pen input. Maybe the new Honor does as well, but yeah. What do you think of the viability of the Surface line, with Apple possibly encroaching into the mid-tier market, competing with devices like Surface Laptop Go? We talked about this on last week's podcast, I think, but I'm of the mindset that it could be quite damaging to the Windows PC space. If you can buy a MacBook for $500 or $600, there's almost no reason to buy a Windows PC unless you need Windows. Like, that's obviously the only scenario where it would make sense. But because the MacBook is more energy efficient, much more powerful with those M2 chips or whatever they'll be next year, it becomes such a unless Intel's around the corner with a chip that is as efficient and as powerful that can go into a laptop that costs $500 with a medium to high tier premium design. I don't know. It doesn't make sense otherwise to not go with the Mac. Will Microsoft ever bring better Bluetooth codecs to Windows like aptX and Sony's LDAC? No idea. I have no idea. If you want a laptop with a touchscreen, Apple doesn't offer that. Yes, that's what I'm saying. You know, there will be scenarios where if you need a specific thing from the Windows ecosystem, then of course you'll have to go with a Windows laptop. However, how many people want a touchscreen on a laptop? It's nice. It's a nice to have thing for sure. But I'm one of those people who doesn't want to touch their screen ever. If I've got a fingerprint on my screen, I'm like, ugh, rub it off. So yeah, of course, if you want a laptop with 5G, or if you want a laptop with a touchscreen or with a 360-degree hinge, then of course you will still have to buy Windows. But if you just want a straight up laptop, if you're somebody who likes, say, the Surface Laptop Go or the Surface Laptop or the Dell XPS, and you just want a laptop and you're not really bothered about the touchscreen or 5G and stuff, I think the MacBook makes more sense.
Or you want track.
yeah. All right, last call for questions, and if there are no more, we will be saying our farewells. I keep getting a warning on my chat saying disconnected, reconnected. That's weird. We did see a release preview channel for 2022 builds last year. Yes, no, there is still a release preview channel, and it will be utilized. I'm just saying, I do not. Previous versions, new versions of Windows never made it to the release preview channel until 2 weeks before general availability. That's, to my knowledge, how it always was. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that in regards to enablement package stuff. But when it comes to the official like proper build releases, when they went from say 1607 to 1703, that to my knowledge only came to that channel 2 weeks before 1703 rolled out. So that's kind of what I'm basing that on. So like I said, 2 weeks from GA will be September 26th. So yeah. Because all to my knowledge, Microsoft really uses the release preview channel for these days is to test the upgrade path from the last public version of Windows to the newest one. Because you've got to remember, insiders for most of the year are upgrading build to build. So if Microsoft misses, a bug may develop between a later build and a build much earlier, but nobody's testing that upgrade path because everyone's been going chronologically, weekly build to build, which is what happened with 1903, I think, or whichever update released, RS5 maybe it was, where it shipped, but it was deleting user files because they didn't do enough testing between the last version of Windows and the newest one because everybody was doing the upgrades weekly, and so that bug was never spotted. That's what they use the release preview update channel for primarily, is to test that upgrade path from the last release to the next release. Now that doesn't really apply now because 23H2 is just 22H2 with some more features, but that's usually what they use it for in the past. Will the N200 in the Go 4 be a worthwhile improvement over the i3? Yes. It will be a significant upgrade in regards to performance, to the point where some sources have described it as a Surface Pro Mini. Now, it won't be, of course, Surface Pro level performance, but in regards to what the Go 3 was, the Go 4 will be more powerful, much more powerful. So, yeah. And also that faster storage, the UFS storage, will be a nice bonus as well. Oh, good, I've got to log into Slack. Great. All right, are there no more questions? Let's have a look. Yeah, right, there's no more questions. All right, with that, guys, we're going to head off. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we shall see you next time. Bye-bye.